Welcome, everybody. I'm Dr. Doug Pernikoff, and we're on our maiden voyage presentation for Dr. Doug's All Things Animal. We are going to be a weekly show hosted here at the studio, and very excited. I have a lovely and talented co-host, Cindy Kit Kat Vickers.
Oh, Lord. I was just ready to say hi. I said, hoping to talk to everybody, and then you had to say that.
Well, say hi.
I'll take it. I've been called worse.
And every week we're going to have a special topic and hopefully a guest to discuss that with. Today we are lucky to have a young lady, Lorrie Curnes. She's the Director of Training at the Petropolis facility in Chesterfield, Missouri. And we welcome you, Lorrie. We're excited to share time with you.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited.
This woman knows things. Listen up.
Good.
Hopefully.
I should mention today's topic again is behavior and training. And not only is Lorrie here to help us, but it so happens that Cindy is actually a longtime trainer. So together we should have a lot of good information to share with you.
Again, long time. Did you have to
go
there?
I'm not aging you.
Thank you.
Anyway, Lorrie, do you want to give us just a short synopsis of who you are, where you come from? I know you've been doing this for a lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a Rottweiler fan for a long time, and I did a lot of fostering, rescuing, and training, and but it was on my own, and I decided that, I needed to make a change, and so I went to our academy to become a certified dog trainer. And since then, I have been at Petropolis for about 5 years, the hands-on trainer, and have now moved into the manager position. And I do a lot of work with dogs with some behavior issues that impact the learning environment or any environment for them. And so
certainly the household.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
Well, and then I know you have some unique programs there, and we may not talk about them specifically, but I encourage people to search out Petropolis and take a look at what they have to offer, because not only do they train, but they also offer training to become a certified dog trainer, and that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So you were telling me a little bit earlier about one of the special programs that you are certified to teach, or you teach through.
Right. We are working on a fear-free environment. It is a program that is just like it sounds. Our philosophy is that when you come into Petropolis, we want it to be an enriching experience and a good environment. Our motto is, if the dog says no, then we need to listen to that and we need to modify our approach. We want that dog coming in, woohoo, here we come, I love being here. And so that's really what we strive for at Petropolis.
Oh, good. And then I guess you custom fit every training program to a specific need, if it's a new puppy or if it's an established dog, or especially rescue dogs where we don't know their history and what's coming at us. You kind of got to do an assessment, I suppose?
Yeah, I do an initial behavior evaluation. It usually takes me about an hour. I'm pretty thorough. I ask a lot of questions, and I ask a lot of questions about the owners, because their history is just as important as the history of the dog. If I have a new puppy, blank slate, there's a different way to approach that. Or if I have some dogs that have some, behavior that impact. I mean, there's a lot of different. We do have some programs in place, but I do customize programs as well.
That's wonderful. And I know for a fact that you started in the special school district, so you have a lot of behavioral training that you didn't expect.
Sure. It's, that we do the same thing, the ABCs, the antecedent, behavior, and consequence. And so we look at what the triggers are and what behavior that triggers and what the outcome is. And so if we want to change a behavior, if we can't control the trigger, then we're going to work on the outcome or consequence so we can get a desired behavior.
Great.
So Lorrie and I are very simpatico because I work for special school district also and do a lot of work with behavior with dogs. But I have a quick question. It's not really about behavior, but I need to know. You've got 1 second to answer. Favorite breed ever?
Rotties.
I knew it because I wrecked my whole question because you talked about the Rotties. Standard poodle. Standard poodle.
Mine's French poodle. I mean, French bulldogs. I just love them.
Because they're darling.
They're little humans.
Let me just interject. I love my little lab right now, though, too.
Oh, okay.
She has a therapy dog with her that is beautifully, beautifully trained, and he is a Labrador Retriever.
Yeah.
But so that brings me to why bother? I get a dog. Why bother to train him? I have things to do.
Yeah, you know, you always want that well-mannered dog. They don't have to be formally trained, you know, but having general house manners. It helps when people come over. You don't want the dog jumping on people. You don't want the dog chewing, darting out the door. If you can get that dog to follow your directions, and again, it has to be fun, it has to be motivating for them, you will be so much happier as a dog owner, and your puppy's going to be happy, your dog's going to be happy, because they know what the expectations are. If we don't provide that direction, they're going to go a direction, and it might not be the way we want them to go. So we're going to provide that enriching learning environment so that everybody in the household's happy.
She's sounding a little teacher-like.
I
know. My bottom line has always been, I don't care what your dog does or doesn't do. It makes no difference to me because I don't have to live with them. But if there's something that's making you feel like you're not going to keep this dog in your happy home, then that's what we want to address.
Right.
And, you know, and then there's a lot of, you know, foundation and overarching things that go with that.
Sure, right.
It's keeping them home.
I have a question for you, Lorrie. You know, I live with basically 5 dogs. They all sleep with us. And there's always a question, dog in the bed, is that appropriate or not? I mean, I don't think I can live without them in the bed. In fact, I'm not even sure if my wife's still in the bed, but I know the dogs are, and I need that contact
Sure.
and comfort.
I know. I get people come in to me all the time, and they're like, "Oh, my dog sleeps in bed with me. I know that's wrong." It isn't wrong if it works for you, okay? You know, I'm not against it, but I want the dog to be able to follow my directions. So oftentimes I tell them, invite the dog in, because then they're still following your directions. But, you know, I am not opposed to, we get them because they're companion animals, just like you said. They provide us comfort. We love them. You know, I'm not going to fight that battle. My dogs get in bed with me, so I probably shouldn't say that, but, you know, but they still follow my directions.
Yeah, my kids always ask me, why do you treat these dogs like humans? I mean, they're just dogs. I go, well, first of all, to you, they're just dogs, not to me, but, you know, you guys left us. They didn't. So I give them a lot of attention.
So I have a question, and I really want you to tell me how to do this. But the question is, pretend that I am a new dog owner. I have never trained a dog before, and I don't know really anything about training, and certainly no firsthand experience. I only want to teach this dog one command. What should I teach him, and why? How?
Okay, so I would probably, if I only had one thing to do, teach that dog a recall or coming to me. Because if I can get that dog coming to me every time, I can stop him from running out the door. I can stop him from leaving the yard.
That's a good point.
Okay, So because I call myself good time gal. Here's where you're going to get the treats. Here's where you get fed. Here's where you go outside. So you want to be in my perimeter.
Are you still dating, by the way?
No. I can't get him to come when I call him.
Well, that's a good answer.
It's a great answer.
How about using food for training? Is that an appropriate measure? I've tried both ways, and sometimes I'd rather they focus on me without a necessary reward other than a hug or a kiss. So how do you feel about that?
Sure. We use positive reinforcement, you know, and I think I mentioned it to you guys before we were here, that we have to find the reinforcement that's reinforcing for the dog. Okay? If a dog is food motivated, it definitely makes it a little bit easier because they want to work to get paid. Okay? Sometimes it's a ball, sometimes it is love. Okay? But when we first start, if that dog is food motivated we are going to pay. I can always back off the payment, but much harder to come back to it. You know, because when we do leave a certain environment, sometimes all we're going to have is the love. So we give love and the reward. Okay, so then we can do it in an intermittent schedule, and then we'll get to a point where we don't have to do it all the time. But that reinforcement is what keeps that dog focusing on you. Remember, good time gal, my perimeter, best place to be.
Yeah, and here's the deal with food. It's quick. Right. So sometimes you need to reward something or a little piece of what you're trying to teach. You only have a second to do it. So if you throw the ball, you're taking up lots of time. If you have some other kind of reward, you often are taking up lots of time, and then you've missed rewarding the exact little thing you're trying to reward. You can always get a dog hungry. I didn't say starve, but you can say, before you feed dog dinner or before you feed your dog breakfast, we're going to do some training while they're hungry. So you have created a lot of motivation.
Well, that begs the
fast.
question that even on the other end of it, the reprimand, you have to be able to associate that whatever you're going to do to learn the lesson immediately, right?
Right.
And how do you do that? That's always hard to do because their action is so spontaneous, like a child doing something wrong.
Sure. It's we say 1.3 seconds to provide the reward. I like to use redirection, right? It's still more positive. When I have puppies just learning or a new dog, I don't want to correct for a behavior they don't know. So if, let's just say I'm teaching a climb, which means you get on a pet cot and you stay on there and the dog gets off, I'm going to redirect to get that dog back on. Okay, using food or lure or whatever it is. But I like to use redirection and then reinforce the behavior before, I really don't use a correction, which doesn't mean to say I might not ever say, oh, no, but I really like to move the little brain forward.
And I think that when you want to teach a dog anything, the very first question is, what is it that you want your dog to do? So even if your dog is doing something you don't want them to do, if I were teaching you, I'd say to you as the owner, okay, I understand that you don't want your dog to jump on you. What do you want the dog to do? Because that's what we're teaching. That's where our time and energy is going.
Sure, that replacement behavior, right?
Yeah,
you
and try and stay focused, consistent. Again, just like raising kids, it's kind of the same principle.
Yeah.
I had one question. As a veterinarian, I get a lot of questions about inappropriate behaviors, like a cat that's urinating out of the box or a dog that's getting aggressive at the food bowl. And, certain things I always tell my clients is, or I tell other friends, if you have a problem like that seems to be behaviorally motivated, you really need to kind of talk it out with your veterinarian first and rule out the possibility of medical conditions. Mm-hmm. And then, in conjunction with that, then we talk to the behavioralist or the trainer to see what we can do on top. So can you add to that a little bit?
Yeah, I agree too. If we're seeing any kind of issues, I always recommend them seeing their veterinarian first because we want to rule out any kind of medical issue. I try not to label a dog with the aggressive label or construct because people interpret that differently, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, you have aggressive dog. So what we want to do is we want to look at that body language, okay, and see what signals the dog is giving me. Aggression, or what is perceived aggression, usually comes from some sort of fear, and that could be an internal or it could be in the environment. So we need to take a look at what is driving that fear, okay, or the cat pottying outside the box. Will tell you I'm not an expert in cats, so I'm not really good at that. But anytime you want to work on something like that, we would be more than happy. Like I say, I offer free behavior evaluations, and that's at Petropolis. Our phone number is 636-537-2322, and you can just ask for Lorrie. And again, I'm the manager of our training department, and we do all kinds of training.
That's wonderful.
It's a pretty place.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's a nice facility. And they have a lot of other services as well.
We do.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go for it.
So I know you offer a lot of services, and you are the training guru queen.
Thank you.
People can send their dogs in for boarding training, or you can take a class, or you can have private training. Can you just tell me a little bit about why do I want to or not want to do boarding training as opposed to a class, as opposed to private? I mean, where do you start?
Sure. Most of my dogs that board and train are typically people who are leaving for a vacation and they're going to be gone for an extended period of time and they want some training during that time, or people who live a little bit outside of the region and it isn't something that they can just drive 15 minutes back and forth, or they want that full inclusion kind of training. We also do what we call a drop-off program where they will drop the dog off in the morning and they get training sessions throughout the day and socialization, and then pick up in the afternoon. Along with that, we have private lessons because we have to educate the parents just as much. I always tell the parents, I'll get the dog to do what I want him to do. I got to get the dog to do what you want them to do when you say it. So, but yeah, and again, we customize programs. That's why I do that behavior evaluation, because I want to see where the dog is and I want to see where the people are and what the goals are.
So in truth, sometimes really it's a combination of things that might have the best outcome.
Sure. Like I said, then we customize to meet the needs of the family.
That's great. You have any questions that you want to throw at her?
Do you need to be coordinated to train a dog?
You know, dogs are going to adapt to their people. I've worked with a lot of individuals that have a physical disability. Typically, we will train a dog on the left-hand side because that would be a formal position. But I will have people that maybe have limited use with their left hand, so we'll teach the dog on the right-hand side. So the coordination, it definitely helps when you're rewarding and have the leash and walking, but it's, you know, you can modify. You modify your training to meet the needs of the human and the dog, and the dog will adapt much more quickly than I think people realize.
Great. This has been a
So
great...
you could train a dog, then.
Even me. That's kind of scary, but you don't want to see how my kids turned out. It's not a good model. We're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to open up the phones and invite people listening to ask questions directly to you. Welcome back, friends. We're going to continue our discussion with our special guest, Lorrie Curnes from Petropolis, and my wonderful co-host, Cinder Vickers. And we have the phone lines open, and we're going to go ahead and take some calls that have called in already to ask questions about training and behavioral requirements. So we'll start on line one. Looks like we have a friend named Sue.
I have a year-old puppy, and he chews on everything in the house. So I want to know how to get him to stop chewing and still allow him to have freedom to run around.
That's a good question. Lorrie, do you have any feelings or comments about that?
Yeah. Can I ask what breed it is?
He's a French bulldog.
Oh, a little Frenchie. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of chew toys or other things do you offer him to satisfy that?
Well, he has like a hard rubber chew toy so that, excuse me, he doesn't eat it and swallow it. It's, you know, very strong.
Does he
other
like
than
that?
He'll chew up everything. He'll chew up other toys, so I have to make sure that it is kind of strong.
Okay, so
But
like
he chews
stuff.
on everything that's just sitting around.
Okay, and does he do this while you're in the room, or are you out of the room, or?
Oh, he'll do it anytime. He'll do it right in front of me, even.
He's pretty bold,
Yeah,
sounds
yeah,
like.
yeah.
Yeah, he's very bold. He's a stinker.
Yeah. So sometimes you just have to manage where they are in the room. You know, it's our job to provide those boundaries for our dogs. If it is a chewer, I would say you keep an eye on him at first, and then find some other objects that he enjoys chewing. We use deer antlers, especially if he's a heavy chewer. Deer antlers, some bully sticks, and I interchange those so they don't get bored with them. I find that hard rubber isn't always as satisfying or enticing to dogs. I mean, it's rubber in their mouth. So if there's something else that you can offer that they enjoy, I think that stimulates a little bit more. There's a lot of different things that we can offer too, but you need to give him an opportunity to chew something that you desire him to chew, and then manage him at other times.
Does that tend to lessen as they get more mature? Because I think, how old is your dog?
Year.
A year, okay.
He's about a year, yes.
Can I throw my 2 cents?
Sure, you sure can.
Oh, I love the idea of the deer antlers because most dogs seem to be really attracted to that. So it's a big deal is, do they want to chew this? There's no point in trying to offer them something that they're not interested in. So you have to do some detective work about what do they like. Is it soft? Is it deer antlers? Is it a bully stick? But I also often see people have many toys on the floor, and then there also is somebody's sock and somebody's shoe and a leg to a chair. So for a dog, there's things that they can chew, but maybe all of these things are available. So I would say pick everything up except for the things that you want your dog to chew.
They can't differentiate, is what you're saying.
No, how do I know that this shoe is not okay, but this, bully stick is okay?
Right.
And then the other thing is that even though you want your dog to have freedom comes, a little later when they're a little bit more trustworthy. And some people think that dogs go through a second chewing stage. I don't know if there's any science behind that, but somewhere around 9 months, a year, you thought they were getting better, and then boom, they start chewing again. So just be patient.
I had one other point from a veterinary perspective. You just want to be careful. You talk to your veterinarian about the type of chew toys you provide, because some of them do have chemical coatings and like some of the raw bones, and I'm really not a fan of those. And so I would say whatever you do, get an okay from your vet, and I think that's a first good step.
Great. I didn't know that. Thank you.
And on line 2, we have Ellen.
We've had lots of dogs in the past, and I'm working, and my husband is going to retire, and he's been wanting a new puppy. Problem is, he's going to be training this dog, not me, and we've not been real successful training dogs in the past. So I really need to know when to start training this puppy and what I can really expect will happen, and what areas can I train him.
That's a great question. Does he know he's responsible? Have you guys discussed
not
this
yet. I got to figure this out before I actually give him this dog.
Great. Lorrie, you want to address that, please?
Sure, yeah. So, as soon as you get the puppy, a lot of times you'll get it around 8 weeks. I start right away with very small things. I might introduce noises or textures. They're pretty adept at listening to us. We use a lot of positive reinforcement, and we make it fun. So if he can make it fun and make it a game and think it's, all these good things happening, that dog, it will gravitate toward him. We use some luring if the dog is food motivated. Sometimes we use toys or balls. It's whatever drives that dog to want to work. Okay, so sometimes the positive reinforcement that they view as positive isn't always what we see. So we really have to listen to the dog and follow that body language. And they really want to learn. They're like little sponges. And so we want to make it consistent, and we do it all the time, but it's fun.
I was going to ask Ellen, don't you think it's important, Lorrie, that both parents are involved? Because I often hear in the clinic, oh, my dog just doesn't like me, likes my wife. It sounds like me and my own wife talking about our children. But I was just wondering, how do you transition if the husband is the primary trainer, and then how do we share that responsibility so the dog is listening to both people?
Right, and that's a great question. Dogs do respond to different people differently. They will understand, though, and listen to certain commands from one person and certain commands from another. The biggest thing is consistency. So whatever terminology, whatever is the motivation, tone of voice, the person's body language, when you're home, you need to be able to step into that role as well. But if the dog has a good foundation, anybody should be able to walk into your house. If the dog knows a good sit-stay, I should be able to walk into your house and tell that dog to sit, and that dog should hold that position. So we want to teach them from all angles, so they get used to men's voices and women's voices and kids' voices, because they're all different and we all move differently.
Well, it's a family affair.
I got to weigh on this for just one second, because over the years I have said many, many times that I believe that I am a qualified dog trainer and an unqualified marriage counselor, but I do a lot of marriage counseling.
Right.
And the one thing that struck me that you said is that it hasn't been successful. So the 3 things I think you absolutely need to do if your dog never learns a single command is to get the dog socialized. That means to all kinds of sounds and places and peoples. That's a new word. People, tile floors, carpeted floors. So get them socialized, potty trained, because no matter what they know, if they're not potty trained, that you're going to be an unhappy person.
That's going to be our biggest issue.
And maybe go to class. Like, your husband's retired. Maybe he would really enjoy class, and then the information wouldn't have to come from you. It could come from somebody else. And I think if he could then maybe get on board with telling you what he learned, it will help reinforce what he learned as he tells you, and then it just, it brings you into the game.
And I think your veterinary office might be able to help you with what I believe is very important for the potty training would be some diligent management using a crate. And I don't consider it a punishment. I consider it good husbandry. And you'll often find later that that particular dog is going to use that crate as a safe place, or when he's tired and he wants not to be socializing, he's going to go and take a rest. So,
like his home,
yeah.
like his own bedroom.
Yeah, well, good luck with that, Ellen.
All right.
And,
Well, I thank you very much.
I think we have time for one more call, and it looks like Erica.
My boyfriend and I recently acquired a 6-month-old German Shepherd. So obviously she had owners prior to us, so we're not sure of her history. And she's fine with the family at home. She's great. We have 2 small children. She has no problems with them. However, when we have people come over, she avoids them at all costs. If they try to approach her, she kind of cowers and backs away from them. We also took her out in public, and she has the same behavior.
Does she growl and get aggressive looking? Or?
She hasn't gotten aggressive, but we're concerned that if, a small child were to corner her, then potentially that could progress to that. So we want to know how to avoid that.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. So, it's really about acclimating to a new environment. As you said, you don't know what the history is. How long have you had her in the home?
Just about 3 weeks.
Oh, okay. So that's a really, really short time to acclimate to a new environment. And if you are flooding her with people and new place to live and new yard, it is going to be overwhelming to her. So I would really slow down the introductions, and I would make it very positive. If you can, a family member or somebody who can just come over and sit down, and if she walks up to him, treat, 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 and then leave. She needs to understand that, people are her friends, but she is sending you, pretty good signals that say, hey, I'm afraid, don't approach me. And we need to read those signals, and we need to respect them, okay? And she I would say that she would need a little bit more adjustment time. It's just overwhelming, especially for a 6-month-old.
I do want to weigh on this a little bit, because I think this is kind of a big deal, because you don't want this to grow. And one thing that I would do, I want to just give the caveat that I would really seek some professional help with this, so that you have really time and help to learn all the nuances of what you need to do. But one thing is to create distance. So if you know that your dog is fearful of a new person, try to get yourself out enough that you can come to a distance where they see a new person, and you see that your dog sees a new person, but they haven't totally cowered. So they're not feeling too scared there, and at that distance, maybe it's 20 feet. I'm making up a distance. Let's say it's 20 feet.
Sure.
That's where you would go. When they can look at you, or when you can see that they're calm, then you would go, what a good dog, and give them a treat. And then when that's good, then you maybe can go to 15 feet. But sometimes distance really is your friend in trying to overcome fearful situations.
I know my wife says that to me all the time. What a good dog.
Not only your wife, just saying. Yeah.
Well, those are great answers, and we, again, welcome your call. We're going to have a break, and then we'll come back, and we will discuss how to winterize your dog and do that safely.
Dooby-dooby-doo, where are you?
Well, we're back, and today we want to add a little bit of subject discussion about winterizing your pet. And we all know we've had a pretty mild winter so far, but at any given day we could have a pretty dramatic change. And I want to make sure that people understand some of the principles of that. And I think, I don't know, Cindy, you've probably had experience in your training, and maybe Lorrie as well, but we have a lot of problems as a veterinarian with people not managing their animals correctly, or they just don't think about things. They let things slide and they forget, wow, it's -degree in there. So one of the big problems we see, we get cats that like to roam free. They do an amazing job at keeping themselves warm and hiding outside, and they like to do that, but many of them end up hiding inside the engine area of the car. And I can't even tell you, as an emergency veterinarian years ago, how many bad episodes we had. You can imagine what could happen. So, that's a big concern for me. But have you had any dramatic issues or?
Only, I'm a woman of opinions, and I'm thinking that some of my opinions might not be that popular, but I haven't seen that much. But in rescue, I have seen more dogs that have literally frozen to death outside. So I think this concept of that, a dog is a dog and they can just be outside, they can't just be outside.
Right,
It's too cold.
Right, even with a dense coat. And obviously the other thing I notice is that people don't think about this, but if you had a dog that was unfortunately outside, we don't support this management, but had to be outside all the time, year-round, he's kind of acclimating with the changes. So he's going to do better than a dog that's your lap dog and goes out, and you put him out to go to the bathroom, and you forget that he's out there, and he's not going to do so well.
And I do know that there are dogs that are outside dogs, and they're okay. I mean, it's not my personal choice, but they really are okay, and there's lots of things to support them, like they have really good shelter and they are out all the time so that they do acclimate. But sometimes I think that looks like also being on a chain, and there's so many reasons why you don't want to have a dog outside and also chained, because if anything happened and they didn't have access to their shelter, they can't get away. If it gets snowed in, if or a limb falls, and again they're stuck in a place where they're literally freezing and their paws are freezing, and that concerns me. But my big one about winterizing, salt on the road, that's, you have to watch for that kind of thing. But it's
because it's irritating to their feet.
Yeah.
So you got to clean them up a little bit. Take when they come back in, if they have frozen ice, take the ice off. If they've got too much salt, they're going to look at it, can irritate their bowel, and it's not a good thing.
Yeah, give them a little rinse,
Right.
some water. But because I think that you have to exercise your dog. So you have to exercise your dog even if it's cold. I mean, if it's absolutely, minus 30 and it's sleeting, you don't have to go out. But other than that, you just have to, put on the right gear, go for a walk. It's actually pretty invigorating. I think the worst part of it is putting on all the clothes and taking them all off. But your dog does not need exercise because it's cold. The same for people. And I have to just say, I just read an article about people's immune systems being compromised and getting sicker in the winter because they don't sweat. And even if they took hot baths and could sweat, they would be in a better place physically. So
That's
I think
a good point.
it goes hand in hand with your...
Yeah, I also want to state as a veterinarian the kind of problems we see health-wise, are multiple. Number one, they can get frostbite. They can get frostbite on their ear tips, on their nose, on their tip of their tail, and of course in their feet. So, and even animals that have a pretty heavy coat, they're vulnerable to this. It's pretty amazing what Mother Nature created. You look at a little skinny leg like a greyhound, doesn't have any fur, doesn't have much on there, and yet they're able to tolerate cold pretty well. So Mother Nature's created some pretty amazing physical and physiological things. Other things you want to watch for, I know, is you want to make sure that if the animal has to be outside and is managed that way, or inside a garage or down in the basement, in particular, you want to make sure they have fresh water all the time and it's not freezing up. And you want to make sure, many times, talk to your veterinarian about this, but feed those animals up a little bit so they have a little more carriage, unless they're totally obese, that's different. But you want to make sure that a working dog or a dog that's normally a little thin has a little more calorie to burn to survive that winter.
It creates some heat.
Yeah. And then the other big point I'm really concerned about all the time is poisons or toxins. If we have an animal that has to stay in the garage or down in the basement, just assume they're going to get bored and they're going to explore. And even the best of households, you want to make sure and be careful about putting up fertilizers that you use in the spring, or any other kind of cleansers or anything like that. If your car is dripping antifreeze, that's good for the car. It's terrible for the dog or the cat. And why so? Because it tastes sweet. It's an alcohol, and they like it. So they drink or lick that up, and then they cause their kidneys to fail. And that's a pretty quick action and very scary. So even if you suspect that kind of exposure or any other poison exposures, you let your vet know right away, and that's really important.
Well, and I want to sort of piggyback on this kind of exercising thing, which is, part of the management plan, just to keep your dog healthy and help relieve some boredom. So if they're really stuck in a time where they're not, even if they're dogs that roam in the yard and it's just sort of too cold and too snowy to do that, their life is just getting more boring and more boring. So they're going to be probably either just melting down and just sleeping maybe too much, or they're really looking for things to do, and all the dangerous toxins and chemicals they can get into, and it's just things that are sharp,
Right.
and things they can choke on. And I had a dog who actually was medium okay trained, and I don't know if you remember this, and we were in the vet's office, and I put her in a room. There were two Dobermans, and I had 2 leather leashes. I hung them on the hook on the door, and I came back and they were gone. I thought I didn't know where I put them. They ate all the leather. She ate all the leather,
Right.
and she'd never done that before. So
Wow.
you don't know what they're liable to do. You just be proactive in looking for anything they might get into and try to get it away from them.
And I think this plays into what you said earlier about exercise. We're talking about activity, so that can be playtime in the home. You can, play with objects, or you can play with the dog and wrestle around, whatever you choose to do. But there's no reason you couldn't have that kind of activity in the house. And that's the responsibility of owning a pet, really, is to interact. You love them on your time, but you got to give them a little bit of support during their time.
So you might want to think about, if you're somebody who's choosing a dog and you don't have one, you're going to choose a puppy or you're going to rescue an adult, whatever it is, that if you live here or you live any place where there's winter, are you still cool with going outside and taking the dog for a walk or playing with them, when it's really cold out like today? Because if you've got a little dog, you can throw the toy down the hall. But if you got the big Mastiff, it's, they don't need as much exercise usually, but you're also not going to just toss a toy down the hall and give them sufficient
I think that's a good point.
energy.
If you do have to have those critters outside, you talked a little bit earlier about the different kinds of facilities. You definitely want something that's going to break the wind or... wait a minute. That came out terribly wrong. Sorry about that. But you want to provide a barrier against wind, rain, and other elements, and try not to break the wind in a public space.
Lorrie, didn't you want to just chime in on that about...
Well, I was just going to say one more thing, that you can find things
Please
like
do.
There's even these pig warmers that they use for pig industry. Those things can be used, in my experience, as a heating pad underneath an area.
Stop. What in the world is a pig warmer?
A pig warmer is a waterproof, kind of rigid heating pad. You plug it in and you put it underneath the bedding. You don't put it directly to the skin of the dog or the cat, but it's a great device. They're real durable. You can get them at most of the feed stores or order them through your veterinarian.
Okay, but it's not like an electric blanket, not to be confused with that, which you could chew on. Okay.
No. Laura, you have any comments about winterizing?
Yeah, I just wanted to, talk a little bit. I know Cindy brought up the gear. We walk. I take my dog, wind, rain, snow. I'm like the mailman, but he wears boots. I've seen a lot of people put the boots on. You see all the videos of the dogs walking kind of goofy in them, but I find that he does that inside, but then once we get outside, he runs and plays, and that really does provide a great deal of protection for their feet. Also, Cindy mentioned too that when you choose a dog, you want to make sure you're choosing a dog that has a similar energy level that you do.
Oh,
if you're a runner and you run 10 miles a day,
Right.
you don't get an old English bulldog or a basset hound, right?
Right.
Or if you're a couch potato,
Yeah.
you don't get a Weimaraner or a really high energy dog.
You've
You
been
want
to
a
my
match.
home, I can tell.
I just think that is a great point.
Do you believe in...
Call Lorrie before you get that dog.
Yeah.
We do that.
That's a
yep.
good
She
idea.
gave the number.
That's
I'll
great.
write that down.
Do you feel like all this clothing and the furniture and all the doodah that we do for our pets, I think it's kind of unique to the U.S. I don't think I see this as I've traveled around the world. I don't have no problems with it. I think the animals look great in some of these clothes, but they are functional too, aren't they? And
Sure.
So just like your booties you're talking about,
Right.
they can be very useful.
And a little hat, with
Little
a feather,
hat.
maybe.
Yeah, it has to be feng shui kind of thing. And I want to mention also that cats are totally different. They, in my mind, they certainly need to be protected against the elements, but they seem a little more sophisticated about protecting themselves. But our general rule to our clients is, try and keep your animals in, especially in the worst kind of weather. Well, one more thing I wanted to ask or mention before we take a break is wild animals like to approach your yard. You don't want to feed animals like raccoons because they'll keep coming back. So that's a bad thing. But you might want to throw some corn out for the deer or some seed for the birds and the winter birds that are hanging around and the squirrels even. So those are things you can do. But be very cautious about opening yourself to that because it's forever then. They keep coming back. And again, want to thank everybody for this discussion, and we'll be back and kind of get ready to end our show. Thank you so much.
Have yourself a Scooby snack. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, here are you. You're ready and you're willing. If we can count on you, Scooby-Doo, I know we'll catch that villain.
Mr. Trouble never hangs around when he hears this mighty sound. Here I come to save the day. That means that Mighty Mouse is on the way.
Well, welcome back. This is Dr. Doug Pernikoff of Dr. Doug's All Things Animal, and of course my wonderful co-host Cinder Vickers, and our special guest today, Lorrie Curnes, who's talked to us a lot about training. It's been a great episode. I just wanted to stop for a moment and have Cindy kind of relay some of the events that are occurring that are pet related in our area. Cindy, you have anything for us?
Well, I've got a couple things. On February 4th, Gateway Pet Guardians is having a Trivial Pursuit fundraiser. It's at the Moose Lodge in Belleville in the Swansea area. So if you were interested in that, I think you could hopefully still get in. Gatewaypets.com is, I believe, where you want to call, but you can just Google them. Also at Bentley's Pet Stuff, there's a fundraiser for St. Louis Rescue, and they're having a puppy bowl. So that's probably nothing short of like adorable. Lola and Penelope's in Clayton is doing a photo booth, so you can get your picture taken with your pet in a photo booth. It's called Barks and Hearts. That's probably pretty cute too. Yeah. And then let's see, maybe two more. Valentails Gala, that benefits Partners for Pets, and that's going to be at the Lewis and Clark College in Edwardsville. And last but definitely not least, I think would be so fun is the Greater St. Louis Agility Club is doing trials at Purina Farms, and I could be wrong here, but I think it's 3 days. I think it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But definitely check out Purina's website and see what they've got.
Wonderful. In recap, I want to just remind our listeners to visit with your veterinarian. They can discuss and help you to decide what is the best kind of training you need for your pet, and then reach out to people like Lorrie at Petropolis. She's a great service. And don't be shy about interviewing several different programs to make sure you get what you need for you and your family. And don't forget again also about the weather protection for your pets. If you get scared or you forget some of the points we made, call up your veterinarian. I'm sure they'll be happy to guide you through that opportunity. Our next show will be on Saturday, Our next show, can I just keep talking? And yeah. Our next show will be on Saturday at 7 a.m. on 1260 a.m. And then again on the new show, The Pulse, 1380 a.m. at 2 to 3 the same Saturday. Every Saturday we'll have a show for you. Our topic next time will be about dog parks. And hopefully a lot of you know or have had a good or bad experience. So we call this dog parks the good, the bad, and the ugly. So be ready to participate, join in through our phone discussions, and we want to learn what your feelings are. Finally, I want to let you know that if you do want to contact us or offer topics or present questions that you'd like to hear us talk about, you can reach us at our website, ClarksonWilsonVet.com, or on Facebook group called Dr. Doug Radio. And finally, the phone number at our clinic is 636-530-1808. So we'll see you each and every Saturday morning and afternoon, and we really appreciate your listening to us.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for listening, and please don't hesitate to call with any questions that you have, even if they might be a tiny bit off topic.
And one more thank you to Lorrie and all the great work you're doing. You want to give that number one more time for Petropolis?
Sure, it's Petropolis. It's 636-537-2322, and you can just ask for Lorrie. Thank you so much.
Great talking to everybody.
We're just listening for his call. Here I come to save the day. That means that Mighty Mouse is on the way.